CQDX on 12. This is Mike 0 Juliet Charlie Foxtrot, Mike 0 Juliet Charlie Foxtrot, Mike 0 Juliet Charlie Foxtrot, calling DX on 12.
Alpha Charlie 1,
Alpha Charlie 1, November Charlie, I believe, but please correct me on that if I got that wrong. Alpha Charlie 1, November Charlie. This is Mike 0, Juliet Charlie Foxtrot. The name is Mark, that's Mike Alpha Romeo Kilo, and I'm just 15 miles southeast of the City of London, down there in the southeast of England, and I'll give you a report and some tech details on the next over, but please correct me on the call sign if I got it wrong. Alpha Charlie 1, November Charlie, this is M0 JCF.
Yep, Mark, you're great on the call sign. Everything's right there. You're a 5-9 here into the northern part of Maine, Mike Echo, and I'm located right on the border with New Brunswick, Canada, about 2 miles from the Canadian border. Back to you.
Yeah, absolutely superb signal from you. Thanks for the 5 and 9. You're about a 5 and 6 peak with me, and I suppose at the bottom end about a 5 and 4, but you're peaking 5 and 6. But I'll get a name off you in a moment. I'm using an IC-7300 this afternoon. I'm only using this radio because I have a little bit of noise on the band today, and I just wanted to try and use the noise reduction on this. Normally I'd use an older radio. I love my old radios, but anyway, using 100 watts, and the antenna is just a 5/8 wave vertical antenna, so I've got quite a simple antenna, but receiving you so far, the best signal from the USA so far. And it's all been eastern seaboard that I've received so far, down as far as Florida, and that one was slightly inland from the Atlantic Ocean. But yeah, got your 5 and 6. Well, with that ramble over, I'll hand it back to you. Alpha Charlie 1, November Charlie. This is Mike 0 Juliet Charlie Foxtrot.
Yep, Mark, the name here is Joe, Juliet Oscar Echo. I'm running an ICOM 7300. Running about 300 watts and feeding that into a VHQ hex beam. We're talking about 43 feet.
Yeah, I'd say that, Joe, it's probably the hex beam that's doing all the heavy lifting this time around, both for receive and transmission. As I say, just using a 5/8 wave vertical, unfortunately, my power is going everywhere and anywhere. Seems to be getting to you very well, but it doesn't receive as well as it transmits. That one thing I can say is quite a regular thing, that there's always a good 3S point difference between signals incoming and outgoing. But we got you in the logbook today there, Joe. You say 300 watts. I'm just wondering if that's solid state or a tube amplifier that you're using. I'm just in the middle of refurbishing or restoring my KW 1000 linear amplifier. It's about 600 watts when it's working, but at the moment my standby current is a little bit high, so I think there's some capacitors and resistors that I need to change. So I'm not using it at the moment because the tubes are quite expensive, and I really don't want to be blowing the tube or even the transformer. So just curious as to whether the amplifier you're using there, Joe, is a solid state or tube, and is it shop bought or is it homebrew? Back to you, AC1NC. This is M0 JCF.
Yep, Mark, I'm running a Marathon AOS 606. It's got a 600 watt solid state amp.
Okay, solid state. Okay, and obviously shop bought and not homebrew. Okay, well it's sounding good, and of course you're using the same radio as me, so as you would expect, your audio sounds very good. I'm using the standard microphone on this one, and just for your information, if you're interested, the noise reduction, I have the noise reduction set at number 4. So I've got noise reduction at number 4. I've got a Santiago 1 to 2 noise floor, but your signal is way above that anyway. So I don't think I'd really need the noise reduction, but I have needed it for the lower down signals. Back to you.
Yeah, Roger on that.
Yeah, okay, and you're sort of almost peaking over the 7s to 8 on that transmission. Well, another little thing there, Joe, just in case you're interested, down here in the southeast of England, we've had a miserable day. We peaked at about 10 degrees centigrade, which is probably just under 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Which is obviously probably more familiar to you if I talk in Fahrenheit, maybe about 48 degrees Fahrenheit. It's been horrible grey skies and a dampness in the air. We've just had a weekend of just solid rain, especially yesterday. So yeah, it's not a pleasant day out there today. Joe, back to you.
Yeah, we're about we're 34 degrees. We're about 0 Celsius this morning, and we had probably 2.5, 3 inches of snow last night. Our snow is pretty much all gone, the majority of it, and we've had snow this winter to what we normally do. Normally we would be snowmobiling right up into maybe mid-April, and the snowmobile quit there probably about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, I see. You see now down here in the southeast of England, we've had 0 snow this year, and it's been like that for some years. I remember back in the 60s and the 70s when I was a younger man and a young boy, we used to get snow that would fall for several days, and it would be almost knee deep. As a boy in the 70s, before I used to go to school, I used to do a paper round in the mornings delivering newspapers locally, and I remember, you know, walking for 45 minutes through knee-deep snow. It never bothered me then. Now it bothers me a lot, and I'm very pleased that we don't get the snow. But how times have changed so quickly. In 40 years, we've gone from regular deep snow here in the southeast to absolutely none. I believe before Christmas we had one day where we looked out the windows and you could see the snow falling, but it didn't settle. It left a light dusting that was gone within an hour or so, and that was the sum total of our Christmas picture, postcard picture out the window there. Joe, back to you.
Yeah, I'm 74 years old, and I think this is the first year that I can remember a green Christmas. No snow. And we've had, I think, a total of something like 50 inches of snow this winter, the weather says, and normally we probably get 120 inches of it.
Yeah, well, you know, just north of where I live, across the River Thames, and as you go north up England, they've had quite a bit of snow over sort of December, January, and Wales, and especially Scotland, the north of England, Scotland, they get plenty of snow. It's just that we're always very, very mild down here in the southeast, and any bad weather we get has normally come over from Europe, or it's come up across the Atlantic, or the North Sea. You know, it's always circles around sort of London, and I'm just southeast of the city of London. I'm in the county of Kent, also known as the Garden of England, and yeah, we get all of the rubbish weather that can be thrown at us, but luckily no snow. But anyway, Joe, great to speak to you today, and I know Maine is known for its fishing and its seafood. I've been to the USA very many times. Since 1987 was my first trip, but I've never been to the northeastern states, so you know, sort of Maine, New York, New Jersey, Vermont, you know, all around there. I'm just trying to list them off the top of my head. I've yet to visit those, but you know, I love to eat seafood, and I do think that sometime we should come over to your fine state and try your shellfish and your seafood. I bet it's fantastic. Joe, back to you.
Yeah, the lobsters and the scallops are great, and we're probably a couple hundred miles here from seafood or anything. We're right up, like say, in the northern part of the state, and pretty much what we got here is broccoli and potatoes and cauliflower.
Oh yeah, do you know what? I think that must be a very English thing because we're on a small island, totally surrounded by water. You know, we're never too far from the sea where I live. I think the closest what we could would be the North Sea to me, and then the English Channel. I don't think I have to travel more than about 60 miles, and I think you're the same wherever you live in England, Wales, or Scotland, or Northern Ireland. You're never that far from the sea compared to, say, the USA. And because I've got in my mind, you know, the state of Maine and New York and that you're right on the Atlantic coast, but of course your states are still relatively quite big, so as you say, you can move in several hundred miles. And of course, if you're closer to Canada as well, you can get some nice moose steaks or something like that. I'm sure you've got quite a diverse diet up that way. Back to you.
Yeah, we've got a pretty good crop of moose here and a pretty good crop of deer. The moose is all on a lottery system. You have to apply, and then they draw your name for lottery. Once you get picked, and you can't compete against it. I have got 3 over the years, and 3 from Mexico. I've got 3 moose, and they're darn good eating.
Yeah, well, I've had venison, you know, I've had deer in this country quite a few times. And in fact, many years ago, I was in New Zealand and I shot my first and one and only deer. So I did that, and we did eat it. I mean, we didn't just shoot it for sport. It did end up that evening on the barbecue. It was set up, and we went out, and we'd had to prove beforehand that we could all shoot straight, and we were taken to where, you know, deer were expected to be. It was more of a culling exercise, and the cull was a regular thing, you know, to keep the populations down, but nothing went to waste. And yeah, it was as I say, it was 1993. That was very exciting, I suppose. There are those that would argue with me that it was wrong, but you know, I was there. It was a New Zealand thing to do, and as I say, I shot the deer, and I did shoot the deer. It then ran off, and it made it about 150 yards before it passed on. And yeah, we got it there. But the person I was with, or my instructor, for the want of a better word, he was fantastic. He knew exactly how to butcher that deer on the spot, and it was actually you know, a really a sight to behold, to see how quick that he basically took this deer apart. And as I say, that evening a big chunk of it ended up on this massive barbecue. There was quite a few of us there, and yeah, it was very tasty. That's the only time I've sort of shot and eaten deer or venison in exactly the same day. But you know, it was an experience that maybe I won't repeat. I don't think I need to repeat that again. It's like a lot of things. But you know, in this country, I've eaten lots of what we call game, and I do like venison. It's a great meat to eat. Back to you.
Yeah, Roger on that. Over the deer, but you know, I like both.
Well, as I say, moose I've never had the pleasure of, and in fact one place I've never been to is Canada as well. In fact, my wife was saying over the Christmas period that she maybe now would like to visit Canada. I've got friends that live in Canada, I've got friends that live in Montreal, and I've got friends that live in Ottawa and Toronto. So you know, we've got places to stay and people to see, and of course we can always hop over the border. I'd quite like to see Niagara Falls myself, so we could just hop over the border there and go down into Ohio. My daughter was in Ohio, I think it was last year. She was down in near Cleveland, Ohio. So, and you know, she never got to see the Niagara Falls, which I thought was a shame. She was, you know, so close. But she said that the lake, she referred to it as a sea. Is it Lake Erie? I can't remember my lakes off the top of my head, which one is which. but you know, she's being my daughter, she just referred to it as, yeah, Dad, the sea was very close. And no, it wasn't, you know, that was a lake. But you know, that's youngsters for you. I call her young, she's 27, but yeah, it was great fun listening to the stories from the area. So yeah, maybe soon, Joe. As I say, you know, we will go into Canada. We'll try those states up in the northeast of your fantastic country. But it will probably be in a few years' time. We was in Florida last year, but we're going to give it a few years to let your economy settle down slightly and get a better exchange value and wait for your food prices to drop. Then we'll try it again. AC1NC M0 JCF.
Yeah, we notice it here with Canada, you know, the difference in the money. I think that will stop a lot of the Canadians coming over this way shopping. When they get close to par, then, you know, we see a lot over here that's shopping in the stores, buying gas. A lot of them still come over here and buy gas because it's so much cheaper.
Well, you know what? We've always found American gas really, really cheap, and it was quite funny that when we was in Florida last year, and we was finding gas between $2.85 up to $3.20, which even by, you know, English standards is so cheap. But even then, my wife and I, it was no, we won't stop there. No, we won't stop there. Oh, look at that one! It's below $3. Quick, let's go and fill up the truck. We had a Ford F-150 truck, and we was filling up, and it was quite funny that, you know, your gas prices were so cheap by our standards. We pay equivalent, you know, nearly $10 to the gallon. We pay about £1.45 for a litre. So, you know, when you do the conversion, you know, it's probably nearer, no, I'd say nearer $7 or $8 a gallon of gas. And that's quite incredible, you know, that is very expensive. And of course, we pay it, you know, we have no choice, we have to pay it. So, yeah, to have $3 an actual gallon, I mean, that is fantastic. That would now be about $3.30, $3.60 maybe, you know, for us here in England, that would be fantastic. But no, we don't have that luxury or that pleasure. Joe, back to you.
No, we're $3.39 a gallon for gas and $4.39 for diesel here in this area right now. But you go down in some of the southern states, and there'll be $1 a gallon less, you know, in places down there. What do you think your phone is with?
Yeah, sorry, Joe, you just told me about the prices of gas and diesel. Then you told me the prices down in the southern states. Then I think you asked me a question, but the QSB dropped your signal way off the cliff that time, and I missed it. Apologies. I think you asked me a question right at the end. I didn't catch it. Back to you.
Mark, what are you using to heat your homes over there? You're using fuel oil?
To heat the homes, no, we use gas, natural gas. We use, you know, just ordinary gas. We cook with both electricity and gas. So our ovens are electricity, fan assisted electricity. Then the gas hob is natural gas. And then to heat my home, it's a gas fired boiler. It's called a condensing boiler. So not only does it extract the heat from the burner, from the flame, but it also extracts the heat from the exhaust as well. So we had that fitted just over 2 years ago, that particular boiler. It's really quite efficient and really quite economical, but that's how we heat. We don't use oil or electricity to heat the home. Back to you.
Yeah, we use, in this area here, most everything is fuel oil. And then when you get in populated areas, then they get into some natural gas, and some are using propane here too, but The oil is I think that's over $4 a gallon.
Well, do you know what is interesting you say that? There was, I don't know how popular it is at the moment, but there was a few years ago a big surge in people using used cooking oil in their diesel cars and trucks. And it's one of those things where people were going to the shops that use big fryers, big oil fryers, the fish and chip shops, that sort of thing, and they were taking all of the used oil because these shops, they had to pay, on these restaurants had to pay to have that waste oil taken away. Then all of a sudden people were thinking, well, actually we can use this in diesel vehicles, and all they were doing was filtering it out. I mean, the best way to do it is to get rid of the glycerine as well, but these people were just taking it and just filling their tanks with filtered cooking oil. But what's happened now is used cooking oil has almost become a commodity, and people have started charging for it, and it isn't as lucrative as it used to be. I mean, if you can get a regular source and you can use that regular source, then I think it's probably well worth using it for heating homes, farm tools such as tractors, etc. I'm sure they could be used there. It does have a very distinctive smell. You know when somebody's burning cooking oil in their car, their truck, or their tractor, and but I've yet to smell it when people are using it to heat their homes. Back to you.
Here too, probably a couple of years ago. They had some kind of a refinery deal that they used. It's home setup, and they were doing we don't hear much about it now. There's a lot of them that are taking the old motor oil out of vehicles, and their garages, things like that, are using it to keep their garages when they get waste oil burners that can use the old motor oil called MOJCF. This is that group.
Yeah, I do know about the used motor oil. Once again, it was a thing, as you say, people heating workshops, etc. Once again, I understand the process of cleaning vegetable oil, getting rid of the glycerine. You clean it using methanol, etc. And then it's called titration, and you can make a good, clean burning vegetable oil. But I don't think people were really going that far. And likewise, with the used engine oil, people were burning it in homemade burners to heat workshops and garages, etc. But the problem with this is you're on a fine line with the law, because the government just does not like you having something that they can't tax, and I'm sure you know it with the US government. If the US government can't tax it, they don't want you to have it. And I think you have to be very careful with the used engine oil burning and the cooking oil burning in a vehicle, because there's always somebody somewhere ready to sort of point the finger, and the next thing you know, you're in a world of hurt. But yeah, I do know people that use the used engine oil. I have made a few burners for it. The principle is quite simple, and once you get it up to a very high temperature, there's very little smoke as well, which is always good, because lots of smoke draws attention to yourself. Back to you.
Yeah, I can remember back years ago, some of the garages were burning wood. They had a wood stove set up in the shop. They would take their old engine oil, and they'd have like just a 5-gallon tank or so. They'd rig up a cast iron cup in the wood stove. They drip the oil into it, just gravity drip, and burn it that way. And but that was quite smoky and quite smelly.
Yeah, of course. And as I say, it's smoky, smelly, it draws attention to yourself. And next thing you know, the government comes along with a great big fat bill. They either cease and desist or they want their cut. It's really unfair, but you know, what can we do? You know, we just stay undercover and we keep it quiet. As I say, I don't burn oil at my property, and likewise, none of us in my family have got diesel vehicles, so you know it's a moot point really. But I am interested in the in you know the way that it's produced. As I say, for the used cooking oil, you know, I do have several books. One of them is a very good book. It's called From the Fryer to the Fuel Tanker. I think you can still buy it on Amazon. I've had mine quite some years now, and at one point I did want to get into making my own diesel oil from used cooking oil, and I was going to do it properly by cleaning it properly, because at the time I used a van. I was using a van to transport my drag bikes around the country, and I just wanted a source of free fuel, but I never really followed up in it. And of course I don't have the van anymore, so I don't have any need to do it. But I suppose the other side of the coin is, you know, is to make it and then sell it, but sell it very cheaply, just to make yourself a small profit. But once again, you know, it's that fine line. It only takes somebody to slip up, somebody to get too loud about what you're doing, and then you're in a world of pain. Joe, back to you.
Yeah, here we have two different types of diesel. We have on-road and off-road. They're both basically the same thing. So what they do with the off-road is they put a red dye in it, and so if you pour it in a clear jug or something, you'll see the red color in it instead of the clear. And the Department of Transportation and stuff, you know, they do checks on trucks on the road and things. They'll get the tanks, you know, they use off-road fuel or not. And big problem is the off-road fuel, there's no taxes on it. It's kind of tax exempt, and there's a big fine on it when they get into that.
You know what, Joe? That's exactly what happens over here. Tractor fuel called red diesel, and the trucks were allowed to use red diesel, but because it's a different taxation, because it was a lot lower tax. I think the other thing was heating oil. Heating oil is also in this country red diesel, and as you say, they had regular road stops where they would check the trucks and the farm vehicles for red diesel. And but I have heard on the grapevine that some clever people found a way of neutralizing the dye or taking the dye out of it. So, you know, it was a cat and mouse game, really. It was a cat and mouse game. A bit like the moonshiners of the old USA, you know, when you had prohibition, people were making moonshine, and there was always a cat and mouse game with the moonshiners and the authorities. You know, always makes me smile. I like it when the small man can get one step ahead of the big man, Joe. AC1NC M0 JCF.
Yeah, you see a lot of that going on. I see you're riding a motorcycle.
I used to, Joe. I used to. When you look at, I take it you're looking at my QRZ page. That was my drag bike that we built many years ago. I say many years ago. 2009, I started racing that one when it was just a standard road bike. But eventually, it was lowered, it was lengthened, and then I put a turbocharger on it. So it was very, very fast. Fantastic on the quarter mile straight line. Absolutely no good for going around corners or anything like that, at least not quickly. Yeah, it was a very fast bike, 340 brake horsepower. But prior to that, Joe, I've done quite a bit of racing in my younger years. I used to road race with my local track. It's called Brands Hatch International Raceway, and I've raced at there and many tracks around the country back in the 1980s. I say road racing Yamahas, and then before that I did some speedway, which is the very short track version of your flat track that that you do on the big ovals out there. But yeah, I did a little bit of speedway in the early 80s. But yeah, I used to say really love the motorcycles, but the roads here are far too dangerous, at least in my eyes. My last accident I had on the road, I broke 2 ribs and my collarbone, so I just decided it just wasn't worth it anymore. And the fun has gone out of it as I've got older. Excuse me, as I've got older, the fun of road riding, that freedom, I just didn't need it anymore. I'm quite happy to sit in my tin box with my music going, that sort of thing. It gets me from A to B, sometimes a bit slower, but I feel a lot safer. Back to you, AC1NC M0 JCF.
Yeah, roger on that. I've rode probably 350 to 400,000 miles on pretty much all roads, but I've traveled every state in the U.S. here except for Rhode Island and Hawaii, and every Canadian province, I guess, except the Northwest Territories on motorcycle. And wife and I are still biking. We're riding an Indian Roadmaster. We're riding a big point.
Oh, that absolutely sounds fantastic. I mean, that is something I'd like to do. I mean, I've done the whole of Australia. I've driven around the whole of Australia. That was 26,000 kilometres. Took 4.5 months, but we did that in a camper van. And we did say back then when I did that I would love to have ridden around Australia on a motorcycle, but never did. And likewise, I've done New Zealand top to bottom, but I did that in a car, both islands in a car, top to bottom, left to right. That took a month to do that, but I did ride motorcycles in the Far East, from Singapore up through Malaysia to and through Thailand. I did that on motorcycles, and that was a lot of fun. Incredibly dangerous, but a lot of fun. But I've always fancied doing maybe Route 66, or one of those famous journeys, maybe from Chicago down to Los Angeles. And I've often thought maybe a motorcycle would be a fantastic way to do it, but unfortunately these days as well, my wife, bless her, she has multiple sclerosis, so a long journey on a motorcycle wouldn't be a good thing. We have talked about doing those road trips in a car, and possibly every now and again somewhere where we can go off piste, we would park the car, hire a motorcycle for a day or two, and do that. And I think we could get away with that. I've been coast to coast in the USA, but I've never driven coast to coast or ridden a motorcycle. And likewise Canada, I say we've yet to go to Canada, but what you've done is fantastic, and I really wish that I'd done that when I was younger. But yeah, and maybe again, I'd like to drive a car across Canada, and maybe stop every now and again to go sideways, and use a motorcycle. But the Indian brand, although it's a famous brand, it isn't a big brand in the UK. I mean, Harley Davidson is fairly big, but Indian isn't so big. There is a motorcycle shop not too far from me, actually. It's about a 10-minute drive, maybe a 15-minute drive from me. It used to be all Japanese motorcycles, but now it is an Indian dealership. I've never been in there since it became an Indian dealership, but you always see, whenever we drive past, we always see the motorcycles outside, and they're the classic big V-twin cruisers, which is not ideal for English roads, I've got to say. And my brother had a Harley Davidson until fairly recently, when he sold it to one of my friends. He had a 1200 Sportster, and I did ride it once. I've got to say, it wasn't my most pleasurable ride on English roads, was the Harley Davidson. And the assumption is, although I may be inaccurate, the assumption is maybe the Indian would feel quite the same. Back to you there, AC1NC M0 JCF.
Yeah, the Indian would probably be about the same as what the Highlanders. I've had, I think, 20 new Harleys over the years, and then here, I think in 2020, I went to an Indian. I'm on my second Indian, and I'm all satisfied with it. And talk about racing, right here, probably 2 miles from the house here, is the old Warring Air Force base, and of course they've got some nice runways there that got me amused, and they have an outfit called Roaring Timing Association. And they come up here 2 or 3 times a summer, and they have land speed races, and they're running motorcycles and cars, and most anything with wheels that run out there, and they've had motorcycles that have topped over 300 miles an hour. I believe they got a mile run, and then they shut them down at the end of the mile.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You know what? Just some years ago, I think it was about 2016, I was building a motorcycle, or just before that, I was building a motorcycle to actually race at Bonneville. I'd wanted to go for many years. I've yet to actually visit the place, but I decided that I was going to go for the alternative fuel land speed record on 2 wheels. I was going to use biodiesel, once again cooking oil. I was going to use a biodiesel, and we started constructing the motorcycle, and the engine was actually a turbo diesel engine from a Volkswagen Polo, and it was 1,500 cc's. The idea was we junked the electronic injector system, and I actually bought a mechanical injector system from a Land Rover. We was going to adapt the mechanical system. We was going to go compound turbo, so it would have been a small turbo driving a bigger turbo to power the engine. And at the time, if I remember correctly, at the time a German person had the land speed record for alternative fuel on a BMW powered diesel motorcycle. Anyway, we started building the bike, and then I got onto the California Timing Association. They sent me the book with all of the classes and the categories and all of the rules, and they basically, it all looked really good. And then when I contacted them again, I don't know, they seem to have changed the rule that I could no longer use a car engine to power a motorcycle in the diesel class. And it was at that point I just gave up. So around about 2016 was what we was aiming for, to actually go to Bonneville, to go for the land speed record. Now, if I remember rightly, the land speed record for a diesel powered motorcycle was only about 130 miles an hour. And we calculated that I could get to at least 175 miles an hour on my diesel powered bike. As I say, it would have been biodiesel, and it was a compound turbo, so it was 2 turbochargers, a small one driving a big one. And I say, with the mechanical fuel injection, we could have wound it right up and really crammed some fuel in until the thing exploded. But yeah, they just turned around and said, no, you can't use that. So I shelved the idea, and then you know, I sort of stop start, and then I decided to actually drop the idea of using a diesel engine, and I went to a methanol engine, and I actually got a Jawa Speedway engine, 500cc single methanol powered engine, and I had a Harley Davidson gearbox, and the idea was to make a 500cc alternative fuel land speed record bike, and then use that same bike back in England as a drag bike, as a special one-off type of sprinter. But unfortunately, again, you know, things just went sideways. The plans just didn't work out, and then COVID came along. COVID-19, and really the world went to pot after that, and I just lost all interest in any form of sort of competition motorcycle racing. So that was the story there, Joe. Back to you.
M0 station, yes, AC1NC. That would disturb the patient, you know, when you get into some of those things, you get something going half-blown or so, and then they change the rules, and you can't go.
Yeah, well, I think what happened with me was I was working to a rule book that was a little bit older, and I just assumed the rules wouldn't change that much. And I don't know if there'd been a problem with diesel-powered motorcycles using car engines. I don't know. But anyway, you know, the lead up to it, and I had a project manager involved and all sorts. You know, we was well ahead. And the person who helped me build my drag bikes for me and my daughter, my youngest daughter, used to race drag bikes. You know, he was going to go ahead and build the chassis. We was going to use chrome moly tubing for the chassis. I was looking into a fairing with a laminar flow type of effect. So the idea was to use laminar flow to see if I could make the thing more aerodynamic. You know, we was going to try lots of different things, but you know, it was all fun doing it. I've got to say, Joe, it was a lot of fun building up to it. Part of me regrets ever stopping, but now, you know, it's all gone, it's all dusted. There's a few motorcycle parts left in my garage which I need to sell on, but I think, you know, I'm happy now in my older age. I'm happy that I've done what I've done, and yeah, no real regrets, just a little bit of, well, maybe I should have, maybe I shouldn't, I don't know, but no real regrets. So I'm quite happy, Joe. Back to you. Yeah, sorry, Joe. Just losing you now. Your signal's dropped off appreciably in those last few overs. Didn't quite catch what you said on that last over. Back to you. Yeah. You know, things don't bend anymore, they actually break, Joe. They actually break, and I think, you know, it's maybe a good thing. You know, I've done a lot with my life, so I've got no regrets there. I'm watching my daughters grow older now. I mean, they're 27 and 24, and as I say, my 24-year-old, she drag raced motorcycles from the age of 12 to 16, so she was like the son I never had in that respect, you know. And I'm just waiting for one of them now to produce grandchildren, and maybe we can start it all over again in a few years' time. I would imagine by the time I'm a granddad, I'll be in my 70s. I'm only 61 now, but neither of them showing any signs of making us grandparents yet. But I think once the grandchildren come along, we can start it all over again, you know, start building motorcycles, small motorcycles, and just getting them out there and being mentors. I think sometimes when you're a mentor, it's just as much fun as doing it yourself, you know, passing on that knowledge and watching it all happening again. Anyway, listen, Joe, as I say, it's now 1700, or it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon here. I'm gonna I think I'm gonna wind it up now and get myself downstairs. I'm in the loft, I'm in the attic space with this radio. I want to get me downstairs and maybe start cooking dinner for me and my good lady wife. My youngest daughter is home. My eldest daughter's now moved out. She now lives somewhere else, but I want to find out what they both want for dinner, and maybe cook some dinner. I'm a retired man. I retired early, and my wife still works. She's a registered childminder, so she looks after other people's children before and after school. And at this time of the day, the parents should now be here to pick those children up, which means, you know, I now, being that I have so much free time, I like to cook. I like to eat too much, but I do like to cook. So I think I'll go down and I'll go down now and prepare and make dinner after I've found out what they want. So I'll cut you loose now, Joe. It's been a fantastic rag chew with you. What have we been going for? the best part of 45 minutes. So, you know, I look forward to doing it again. You put up a really good signal for the best part of this QSO, but as I say, you're just dropping off now, and before it gets too difficult and I keep asking you to repeat yourself, I'm going to wish you and everyone around you, Joe, a very, very best 73. Look forward to the next time. You find me on 12 meters quite often, Joe, so come and say hello again, and we'll do it all again, and we maybe repeat ourselves, or maybe we'll come up with something new. I'd like to ask you a few questions really about the land around you, but I'll save that for another time. I'll hand over to you for a final there, Joe, and wish you a fantastic day and a great evening. Alpha Charlie 1, November Charlie, this is Mike 0, Juliet, Charlie Foxtrot, listening for your final. Cheers, old chap.
Have a great evening, and enjoy your dinner, and hopefully catch up again.
Yeah, cheers, Joe. Absolute pleasure. You're a real gentleman and a credit to the amateur radio hobby. It was lovely speaking to you. Okay, Mike 0, Juliet, Charlie, Foxtrot in the southeast of England is going QRT. This frequency is clear for use. This frequency is clear for use.
Hola, CQ12, hola, CQ, hola, CQ12. Italy Whiskey 9, Charlie Kilo Golf chiama. Italy Whiskey 9, Charlie Kilo Golf.
I think he's been waiting. I think he's been waiting for the American.
Hola, CQ12, CQ12,
Yeah.
CQ12.
He's probably sat there patiently waiting for me to leave, thinking the other person was holding a frequency, but unfortunately, old chap, not this time.